a Zen approach to enlightenment. Wake up and smell the coffee, basically. Okay? Enlightenment is a very loaded word. And there's a lot of concepts and ideas about what enlightenment should be, should look like, who's enlightened, who's not, am I enlightened? Once again, in Zen, we're very practical. When my wife and I started this group a little over a year ago, we really did have a primary point and goal. And that was to have a group that offered practical, everyday, real-world meditation and mindfulness practices that would meet our community and our friends, our Sangha, where you're at exactly right here and right now, and would give you real tools to help transform your mind and give you more peace, more happiness, joy, less suffering, however you want to look at it. As I always say, metaphysics is very interesting, philosophy is very interesting, but a lot of times it's a rabbit hole. It's fun, but a lot of times does it really ease our suffering right here, right now. The Buddha, when he was asked about metaphysical questions many times, simply wouldn't even respond, would be silent. And I think that was for that very reason. And he said, I only teach suffering and the end of suffering. So, it is my desire, passion, purpose in this life, if I consider myself any kind of teacher, to give practical instruction. And a good teacher, all a good teacher does, the Buddha himself, Sun San, Thich Nhat Hanh, Jesus, whoever you want to look at, all they do simply is point the way. And they're a good cheerleader. They're an encourager. But ultimately, Buddha can't live my life, Jesus can't live my life, I can't live your life. I can only point the way, Buddha can only point the way. We have to walk through the door ourselves. But what all the masters did throughout history, in my humble opinion, was to make the profound simple. And there's a quote that I love from Einstein that says, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And it's interesting, because I've even heard that about teachers like Thich Nhat Hanh. Oh, yeah, he's nice and everything, but it's just too simple for me. Because we as humans, a lot of times, we make things complex. And we want complexity. But if you really lived those simple methods truly 100%, moment after moment after moment, they would transform your life profoundly. I promise you. When the Buddha first gained enlightenment, as the story goes, he actually sat for many days and wondered if he could even teach what he had found. It seemed overwhelming, and he really questioned whether people or not would understand. And as the myth goes, all the gods and the bodhisattvas said, please, come down. There's only some people with just light dust on their eyes. And luckily for us, he changed his mind and decided to teach, which is good for us. But when he set out to make his understanding into a practical set of ideas and teachings and practices, he needed to find something that met each and every person where they were in that moment. And we all come in our moment right now with different life circumstances and histories and past. So he had to come up with some basic teachings that hopefully would get the most people on the shortest and most direct route. Now, over the eons, many other paths were created. But the main thing is, how can we create a method for the most people in the most direct and quickest path to give us some release and relief of suffering? I often think of these metaphysical questions also as mental black holes. Once again, I'm not saying, sure, go out and question and wonder, it's fun, the mental gymnastics. But sometimes you think about it, you can just go on and on and on. It's like the internet. Click, 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 click. But, as I said, how much does that really help us right here and right now? So let's get practical. I'm going to give you a very, very simple definition of enlightenment. Because I know people have asked me before, what's enlightenment? Are you enlightened? All these kind of things. Enlightenment simply is wake up. In our culture, wake up and smell the coffee. There's a lot of other terms for it. Awareness, clarity, isness, being, nowness, true self. We can get even more complex as we go on. But it's basically wake up. It's an aha moment. And I think we all, I would dare say if I was a gambling person, we all in this room have had one or probably many, even if brief, aha moments. Moments of clarity. Moments of shifts in perception. That is enlightenment. Okay? So congratulations, you're already enlightened. You're already Buddha. You can go home. You don't need to come back to the class anymore, like I always say. And on the highest level, that's true. On the highest level, we are all Buddha. We all are Christ. We all are whatever, we all have that perfection, true self, whatever you want to call it. But my teacher that I study with, I'll never forget. In the Heart Sutra that we chant every week, it says, there is no attainment with nothing to attain. And on the highest level, that's true. I really believe that. But he said, wait a minute, there is something to attain. Most of us, there may be those rare individuals that have that sudden enlightenment and lasts their enlightenment. But I really, truly, from my own experience and the experience of many, 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 many teachers and other people, believe that it's moments of enlightenment and then gradual cultivation. Those moments, those aha moments, we've all had. But if you sit there and wait for that under the Bodhi tree experience, like in a movie, you may have that. You may have even experienced something similar, but if you're waiting for that, the gods to come down and speak to you and angels singing in the background, oh, you may wait forever. I don't know. Those things can happen. I'm not saying they're not going to. But don't wait for it. You've all had moments of enlightenment. So how do we get there? Why are we even here? I made a little, you can tell my handwriting is very bad. But I didn't want to play and spend a lot of time on the computer trying to make something look nicer. So we have our normal everyday life of a little bit of unhappiness, suffering, anxiety, worries, and there's this big brick wall in front of us. And let's pretend it's a big ice wall. It's like made out of bricks of ice, and our heart is somewhere in the middle of that. We keep hearing this term in Buddhism called karma. Once again, there's a lot of ideas about karma. There's a lot of definitions of karma. But once again, in practical world and practical Zen, I'm going to give you a basic definition of karma. It's simply habit mind. Forget all this past life stuff. Forget all this, if I do this and that and that and the other. Yeah, there's some truth to that. But simply speaking, in the most basic form, karma is simply habit mind or habit energy. It's like the old belief system, your old OS, operating system. This is like Explorer 1.1. This is your old belief system. Okay? So why are we here? Why do we even practice? There's been many masters that say you don't even have to practice. We're already Buddha, right? Right? But hey, wait a second. Or you don't feel it. Yeah. Do you feel enlightened all the time?
We don't know we are.
Yeah, you don't get it. You don't feel it. You don't know it. So in the highest realm, we can play all this kind of metaphysical stuff. Yes, you're Buddha. Yes, it's wonderful. Yes, you're love. Oh, and that is a nice goal. It's nice to meditate on that. It's something that gives you inspiration. But does that always help us right here, right now? In our seeming duality, in our seeming world of illusions and suffering? No. I'll speak at least for myself. And I think the vast majority of people, I know there's people who wouldn't agree with me in everything I'm saying right now. Oh, you're making stuff. Yeah, that's true. But I'm trying to be as real world and practical as you can be. And most people suffer, have anxiety, depression, worries. Pain is optional. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. If someone hits you in the arm, if someone punches you in the face, it hurts. I don't care what guru tells you it doesn't. They're lying. If someone hits you in the face, it hurts. But after a few minutes or a few days or whatever, eventually, the pain, you might have a little swelling, a little redness or whatever. Let's say in the arm, that's a little nicer. If I punch you in the arm, you'll feel it. But after even a few seconds or minutes, more than likely the pain will be gone unless I hit you with a baseball bat or something. Suffering is when I keep going back to that. But what's easier to relate to is words. If someone I love comes up to me and says, "You son of a bitch, you dirty rat bastard," whatever, that hurts. It's painful. But we can also let that go. The suffering is when I think about what my parents or my wife or whoever it is said something to me 5 years ago and I'm still carrying it around today. Oh, how could they say that? They're such bad people, or I'm such a son of a bitch because I, did this or that. That's suffering. I think we can all clearly see the difference. So once again, why are we here? And what path are we on? We want to be here, right? Enlightenment. We want to be where that place where everybody tells us we are. All the masters say we're this and that, but we don't quite feel it yet, or don't feel it from moment to moment to moment. That's where meditation and mindfulness practice comes in. This is the sun. Those practices are the very practices that help melt this wall. This ice brick wall. They're a new OS. They're a new operating system. Literally short circuits your old belief system. And that belief system was taught to us. We weren't born that way. It was taught to us by our parents or our culture, society, whatever you want to call it. But it was taught to us. But it is a basic operating system of the mind. And what did Buddha say? He said, mind creates everything. On this other sheet of paper, there's a couple of highlights. On the very first highlight, Shakespeare said, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Sounds like a bunch of other great teachers, right? Buddha, Jesus, a couple of places in the Bible, right? Mindfulness literally and meditation practices melt this wall of your habit mind, your habit energy. But once again, like I said, we were taught this. The mind needs an operating system. On one level, it doesn't. You can get into emptiness and that before thinking mind. But in our daily lives, we like to have an operating system. And this mindfulness and meditation practice isn't just what we do on the cushion. It's what we do in our daily lives. This is the place, this is like the gym where we come in and make our muscles stronger so that we go out in the world. We can do it from moment to moment. So it's pretty simple. Enlightenment, in the terms of the Buddha, all it is that instead of having one aha moment, or a few moments, or maybe a few minutes of seeming ease, peace, clarity, mindfulness, whatever you want to call it, it's moment after moment after moment after moment after moment. And those get longer and longer and more stable. Or if you fall out of it, you come back into it quicker. The more you practice, the Buddha, all he did was he learned just to do that continually, without cessation, without interruption. That's why we're here. I want to read this second. Well, you know what? I'm going to skip the second part because that's about sticks and stones. I basically kind of went over that in terms of, if someone calls you a name or something. You can read that on your own. You can read this whole thing on your own as well. I'm going to read the last one. Energy of belief goes into it and it seemingly becomes so. And that's another word you want to look at too. Belief. This is our old operating system. Belief. I love this definition of belief. A belief is never the actual. The dictionary definition of belief is an unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason. Acceptance of an alleged fact without positive knowledge or proof. It's also an assumption. And sometimes assumptions can help. But a lot of times I think we've seen where they're damaging. And on the very bottom, I love this, one of my favorite definitions. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Albert Einstein. I love that definition. So why do we meditate? Why do we practice mindfulness? It's that path that the masters have shown us before, but we have to tread it ourselves. And if you have a good teacher, a good book, or whatever it is, all those people do, they can't walk the path for you. They've already done it themselves, but they can shine a light on it. Or say, over here, hey Jeremy, right here. Yeah, you're coming the right way. Go Jeremy, go. Go Jeremy, go. But ultimately, like I said, I have to walk it. Alexis has to walk it. And Swella has to walk it. So I wanted to do one last thing that kind of really drives home this idea of real world and what we experience. Like I said, for most people, meditation is the method to expand this sudden and brief enlightenments into gradual cultivation, into longer and longer continuous moments of enlightenment. Similar to, I forgot I normally wear it every week, but my mantra beads. Can't believe I forgot it today. It's like stringing those beads together, moment after moment, and then tying them so it's just one circle, so it never stops. Okay? I want you to imagine something though. You can close your eyes and think about this. Imagine you're on a very, very, very big cruise ship with tons and tons and tons of people and food and water and gas and lots of metal. Very heavy ship. Okay? And you're out in the ocean. And you're standing like in the movie Titanic on the front of the ship, on the bow. And you see off in the distance an iceberg. Now you're the captain in the top, and you see this iceberg. You know how long it takes to stop a ship that's that heavy and big in the open ocean? I actually did a little research and Googled some of it. A ship of, I can't remember, 40,000 tons or some huge, ginormous ship like that, only going 24 knots, which isn't very fast. I don't know the exact miles per hour, but most ships, top speed, don't go very fast unless they're speedboats. Said it would take like over a mile to stop. Once they saw it, turn the engines around, turn the propellers around, or however they stop those big ships, it takes a very long time. So the iceberg and the seeing of the iceberg is enlightenment. You see an iceberg, you don't want to hit it, and you know you need to change course, right? That's enlightenment. Boom! Immediately. No question about it. But because of your karma, your belief systems, your old habits and habit energy, it's like a heavy ship. And it takes some time and practice to start to turn the ship out of the way of the iceberg. So, you miss your first iceberg. That's when you first start to practice. And you're a big, heavy ship. You pull into port, you get off your big, huge ship, and you get into a big 18-wheeler. 18-wheelers are a little more nimble and a little more, doesn't take quite as long to slow down. So you're in your big truck, and a car comes out in front of you down the road, and you slam on the brakes. Well, it still takes a little bit of time, right? And you just keep taking this metaphor up and up. All right, you're in a little sports car. Motorcycle, even faster. And then take it even to the image I had was a jet fighter pilot. And maybe there are those rare people, like the Buddha himself, the historical Buddha. Maybe he started out almost as a jet fighter pilot. And maybe he was a lot quicker, finding that enlightenment and freedom and having that practice. But I think a lot of us probably honestly start out as the tanker ships or somewhere in between. But that's the mental image I had this morning of this whole idea of enlightenment and practice and karma, because we have a lot of loaded issues and thoughts about what these things are. And my whole goal, I'd like to believe any good teacher's goal, is to boil that down and make it as simple as possible. Encourage you. What time are we at? Perfect time. So this week I talked a little more than I normally do, but I felt like there was a lot in my heart and wanted to share. Does anybody have any questions? Any thoughts?